Shout out to our sponsors at IconBet. Open source, decentralized gaming, no deposits, play straight from your wallet. IconBet, made by the players, for the players. Eye on Icon is proudly supported by Icon Nation and the Icon community. Welcome back to another episode of Eye on Icon. Today we have Brian Lee with us. Brian, how are you today?
I'm doing well. Excited to be on this podcast.
Excellent. We're always happy to have you on. And today, what we thought we wanted to do is Brian has teased a lot about the Rhizome DAO, and there's a bit of beta testing going on. And we thought, well, it's about time you come on the show and share with us what your vision for the DAO is, or what is being created in the background, and what are you hoping to achieve. So this is really going to be the Brian show. Over to you, Brian. Tell us.
Yeah, it's definitely been something I think that has been lurking in the back of my mind for a while. Maybe not specifically the idea of a DAO, but more so a vehicle for people in the community to come together and work on projects with people who actually care. I think that over the years, the concept of a DAO has sort of drifted away from, I think, the idealistic version of what we were all thinking it was going to be. I feel like a lot of the DAOs that are popping up now, I guess the most recent one in the Icon community would be the balanced platform. That's functioning as a DAO, where essentially the power that you have is corresponding to the amount of tokens that you hold. I I think that what people want to get out of a DAO has has really shifted. There's two main things, right? First, you have the power. The second thing is you get some sort of token or incentive that you can either hold or you can sell. I think that people are prioritizing the latter, So instead of seeing the DAO as a vehicle to work together to make the platform into something bigger, I would argue that I think most of the people involved on these platforms nowadays are just trying to make a quick buck. What's your thoughts on that, Fez? Before we get on further, would you say that you agree that the majority of people, not only on Balanced, but on other platforms like Maker, there's so many DAOs out there now. Would you say that these people are prioritizing how to make money first, and then thinking about
Totally.
the DAO second?
Totally. In fact, they don't. It is all about when can I get my share, and that's fine. But underlying, and this is probably my tweet to you. When current vote, it wasn't having a dig at Balanced or anything like that. It was more around. It's all well and good that we're getting paid out so quickly, but the protocol is so young. What is really beneficial for this DAO? Is it giving the fees back so quickly, or is it a bit of hoarding and building that, to sustain it in the long run, and then basically, rewarding its users? But to your point, that's exactly right. It's the concept of a DAO is, how can we make it better? How can individuals help get this to a place it should be? But sometimes it's being flipped around as when can I get my money?
Right. Yeah. And I think on the governance side, speaking about the Icon network specifically, we've seen a few instances of different PREP teams that are offering, XYZ token. If you vote for us, you get, this much back. And, that has proved to be an interesting experiment because I think it's interesting to see where that value is flowing to. All of those extra tokens that you get each month. Some PREPs are also giving a portion of their actual income they earn from their node. It really makes me think like, oh, is this value really going to the place where we as a community feel that it's growing the platform? And I think for most cases, no. So I was really thinking about like, okay, uh, if the incentive is strictly in a form where people can just sell on the market, I I'm not convinced that in the long run that's actually gonna help the project grow, because uh, the reality is that, like as we've seen, most people are just here to make a quick buck. I'm
Yeah.
not saying that there's anything wrong with that, but like if we know that, maybe we can incentivize people with something else. So that kind of got my mind thinking, and I was like, okay, um, for the past year or so, there's been multiple times where uh, Rhizome has kind of been approached by people. It's like, hey, are you gonna start doing these like um, promotions that these other teams are doing? Vote for us, you get something in return. And actually, I think if you go back in history, uh, we were one of the first teams where I think some some weird dude in the community like reached out to us, and they're like, "Oh, well, I'll vote 5 million votes for you if you give me part of the monthly income that you make," and that turned out to be like a big deal. Back when people actually thought sharing the income was a bad thing, for a while, um, teams that were engaging in that kind of thing was getting a lot of FUD. But now, it's normal. So the past year, we've had a few instances where like, hey, I really want to vote for your team, but this other team is, they give back 50% or whatever of their income across all the people who vote for them. Will you consider doing something like that? Because if you do, then I'll vote for you. And I always felt bad about that. It just didn't feel like something that was a good use of capital, because I feel like Rhizome is one of the teams that are, we've been around since the start. All of us are really actively working. And uh, I think we have a good sense of where capital can be deployed in order to efficiently use it more. And in my mind, just giving it away to voters for doing nothing in return except for voting, which they have to do anyway, in order to get rewards from their staking. It just seemed like a bad use of capital, especially when the network is so young. Maybe like 10, 15 years down the line, if Icon is adopted, like, or widespread, maybe then that would be more justified. But it's like now every dollar that we give away to the voter for voting is like $1 less that can be spent on actually building something. So that got me thinking, okay, maybe incentivizing people with just money is not the bad thing. I mean, is not a good thing. So what can we incentivize them with? So um, that got us thinking, and I started putting together a list of things I thought were valuable. So instead of just giving people money, it's like, why not give them the tools, the knowledge, uh, and the support that they need uh, in order to make more money if they wanted to. So that's kind of an interesting way to go, because it actually helps you filter out the people who are just in it for a quick buck. Because if you give them a platform, and this is just a few examples of things that we're in the process of building, some of this is already done. Like we have all of these feeds that are showing all of the activity unbalanced. And the idea there is, if you have access to real data, instead of just logging onto the platform and making a trade um, based on your emotions, which I think a lot of people in crypto do, it's like, what if you had access to data? So if you see in real time that a lot of swaps are happening in one direction, maybe you can use that to influence your choice instead of just, oh, I feel like the price of this is going to go up next week. Let me buy it.
Mm.
And like, we have other things where we're working with someone who works with data in order to. So we've been basically collecting snapshots of statistics across the entire network, from like the token prices to the amount of trades, the number of users, basically any statistic that you can think of. We've been collecting that like every 5 minutes for the past few weeks. So, like, what if we can look at that data and try to spot some trends? Maybe we can see a certain time of day ends up a lot of people selling their balance tokens maybe right after they claim them. And then, like, there's a trend that shows, okay, this has been happening across a few weeks. Every day at this time, people tend to sell their tokens for some reason. Maybe if you buy it there, you wait for a few hours, you can make a profit or something, right? So if people have access to this kind of data, they would be able to influence their choices, possibly in order to make more money if that's what they wanted to. And then, we're also building a number of bots, and just I'm trying to put together like a developer, like a place for new people basically to learn the basics of how to build on Icon, and the idea there is like, maybe if you join us, you start to teach yourself how to build. Maybe someday you're going to be the one who's going to be building the next DeFi platform on Icon, and then you can, uh, do whatever from there. So I think by incentivizing people with tools rather than the product, and by the product, I mean like the money, right? Um, by incentivizing people with tools, you are really able to capture the audience that really cares about Icon, and about the future of the project, rather than just extracting the most money that they can as soon as possible. So before we go on, do you have any comments or questions?
No, so I think one thing I would like to probably call out, I guess at the moment our ecosystem's very much sell pressure orientated, isn't it? Like, especially voters get rewards. Naturally, most of the time they're selling those rewards. Now we got PREPs, and not that there's anything wrong with it. That's how it's evolved. People decide to hand back rewards. That's fine. But essentially, what's happening with those rewards is it's basically probably getting sold. More sell pressure for ICX. Over here, I know in the background you've been observing. I've been observing in a different way, where we're doing a few things, and I have a lot of people reach out or have skill sets that I see excel and do cool things, and I think, wow, there's so much talent here. How can we get that talent working in the right direction together, to kind of fill some of the gaps and enable a lot more? So the idea of a DAO, to me, that's where it comes to mind. And from what you've been talking about, Brian, like, you're right. Currently, DAOs, because they're set up like, balance maker, and as more people come in, they've come in on the hope to make money, not by actually inputting their skill sets to elevate the DAO in a
Right.
certain way. It is gimme, gimme, gimme. You guys do gimme, gimme, gimme. So I know in the background we've been talking. It's like, well, what can we do to create a DAO that looks to bring in talent and want to use their talent to enable the DAO and themselves. So
Yeah.
I feel, yeah, that's what the picture you've tried to paint, and that's the overarching goal, which is fantastic. So yeah, just rounding that off. Thanks, Brian. Keep going. No, that's perfect.
Yeah. So I think the thing that sets the Rhizome DAO apart is, I don't think, unlike other DAOs which are trying to recruit as many people as possible, for something like balanced, essentially, like, you do want a lot of people to be on the platform. You want a lot of people um to hold a token, but I don't think that's really what the Rhizome DAO is aiming for. Even more specifically, more specifically than that, I actually think that we would prefer to keep it, like a small core group if possible. And to this point, I'm I'm not sure, if what we're building is actually going to end up being a DAO. I think that we don't know what to call it right now. So DAO seems like a good marketing term. But we do want a place, where people can come. They certainly do have a share within, certain aspects of what the rewards are. So, for example, and I guess I can talk about this since we're talking about the DAO. We do have some ideas of how of giving people within the DAO, some sort of financial incentive. I don't think the financial incentive is the main thing. Um, and but at the same time, I do understand that people do have to be compensated in some way for their time. That's like a more direct incentive beyond just like, oh, hey, if you use the bot to do this, you could potentially make a few bucks on the side. That's kind of an indirect incentive. So in terms of like the direct incentives, we're thinking of ways to form different streams of revenue and then be able to, to share that or to share a percentage of that across the people within the DAO. So, right now we have some rules in place that you have to vote for Rhizome with a minimum. I believe the minimum is 500 ICX, and then Rhizome should also be 10% or more of your total votes. So, yeah, and I don't know if that's like the optimal way of doing it, but that's the way it is for now. And speaking of the revenue streams, we've been thinking about a few things. We thought about like a swag store. I think I still think that's a great idea. It doesn't really. I don't think. Well, there is one out there, but it seems like no one knows about it. Or yeah, what?
I think a common way to unite a DAO and create a initial revenue stream is merch. Like
Yeah,
and this is one thing. Like as we're talking, we keep focusing on balanced maker. They're a very different style of DAO
yeah,
in my book. So if we look at some of the newer ones that have formed, let's say Bankless, for example, the Bankless formed essentially take Ion Icon, yeah. So Bankless have a large volume of listeners that listen to the Bankless podcast and newsletters, etc. And they kicked off a DAO, and they gave everyone this token. They just basically airdropped a ton of these tokens that were meant to be worth nothing. But what's kind of happened, and I'm giving a bit of context here, what is happening is all these people that got these tokens thought, wow, this is an excellent experiment. And the token was worth nothing. So it started from nothing, and all this talent came together and said, well, I have video editing skills. I'm a professor here. I'm a this person. I'm a that person. And they have all been coordinating, and they've created guilds in this Bankless DAO, and they've kicked off a merch store, a podcast, a thing. They're trying to generate revenue that goes into a treasury that all of a sudden makes these worthless tokens backed by
yeah,
something and worth it. And I think this is what got me, like, sparked my eyeballs. I was
yeah,
like, oh my god, but there's so many people in the icon community that have so much talent. What can we do here? And Brian, I was driving and I
yeah.
pulled over to
Yeah,
harass you.
yeah. Yeah, I think the important thing to keep in mind is that for those people who don't know, DAO stands for what is it? Decentralized Autonomous
Yes.
Organization. Yeah, I think that's it. But like the most important part is the last word. So uh, I feel like right now within Icon and certainly within many other blockchain projects as well, there is a distinct lack of that last word there.
Mm.
People don't really know how to organize themselves, or they might, because it's kind of a skill,
Oh
to be
yeah.
able to come up with some structure, come up with the optimal place to talk about stuff. And the problem is like Telegram sucks for this kind of thing, because it's kind of one dimensional in the way that it works. Is like there's no concepts of like different chat rooms, like if you want to talk about different topics. There's no concept of like if you want to be reminded of a message or something. There's no built-in function to do that. You can kind of send it into your saved ones, but that's kind of different. So it's the first step was really thinking like, okay, well, if we're gonna have a DAO for people to join and to talk and to work together, like where should be the best place to do that? So it should really fulfill a few requirements. It should be multi-dimensional. It should be free, and it should allow for some kind of integration with bots because uh, bots are great. So,
Mm.
um, it really got boiled down to either Slack or Discord. I think the official place to do this kind of business is the Icon Forum, but I also think that uh, a forum it might be a good place to present a final proposal for some discussion after, but it's not really like a decent place for real time kind of work. And I think that is the case, because when you're working at a company these days, most of them are going to use Slack, right?
Mm.
They're not going to be using like a forum that you log into and talk to each other. So there's certainly a lot of value in these tools like Slack. Uh, we chose to go with Discord for a few reasons. I feel like it's more crypto friendly in the sense that uh, it appears to be less like traditional corporate businessy. Um, I and if you're gonna integrate with bots, it's a lot faster and a lot more simple to do that. So I guess Discord was really built for gamers,
Mm.
and it's kind of popular for people in that sphere to be able to build bots to update their Discords regarding, like the status of a game or something. So, um, and there's also like you can have different chat rooms. You can lock down chat rooms to certain roles,
Mhm.
which is very important. We have a DAO member role that has access to certain channels that the normal role would not have. So it all came together into this Discord group, and I I really think that's like step one here, because we I think it's a good way to solve the problem of, okay, if there were people in the community who wanted to work together, where would they do it? Uh, it seems kind of counterintuitive and kind of lazy if you just wanted to do like a Telegram chat for each group of people that you work with, right?
Mm.
It can quickly get very confusing because it's just not meant for that. So I think Discord was the right way to go. And then I think the next part is really trying to reach out to the community and recruit people. Like I feel like the people that we want to recruit are the ones who their first priority is actually to grow Icon. The second priority is, hey, you might get a few perks if you do this within the context of our group. And I think so far, like a lot of people, this is very telling too. A lot of people reached out to do the beta testing. 99% of them are not active,
Mm.
but we got two or three people who sometimes are talking on the group. And I think that's a great start. Um, we had like maybe 20, 25 people reach out. Most of them didn't even go through the process of inputting their address in order to get access to the DAO role. So that tells you the mindset of many people in crypto. Uh, certainly 20 to 25 people is not enough to do, like a comprehensive, uh, I guess, come to a comprehensive conclusion about the mindset of people. But at the same time, I think if 25 people sign up, only two people end up actually going through the process of putting in their address. So you can say that like 10% of people actually showed interest in joining the group. So that tells you crypto people like to get hyped up about things. They they see the word DAO somewhere, they feel like maybe this is like the next place where they can go to make some money. And when they join, they find out it's not really about that, then they don't proceed further. So this is actually like a great thing to do. I like the idea that, okay, you have to join in the group, then you have to provide your address. That's how we check to make sure if you're actually voting for us and you meet all of the requirements. And if you pass, yes, then you will get to the next role. But if you don't, uh, then it's not really like a matter if like of okay, we don't want you here. Like that's not the thing. It's just like okay, maybe this is not the right place for you. If you're not going to uh, actually put in the work
Yeah.
in order to get access to the thing you wanted to get access to, um, then that just shows that you actually don't want it at all. And we just want the people, who are passionate, who do have skills, and who want to come and join and work together on stuff. And I think the stuff is to be determined. We're still finalizing some of the platform features, some of the bot stuff I have to fix up. But hopefully, like in a few weeks, we can start to get a few of the active people who are actually in the group and say like, okay, everyone, please talk about yourself a bit, like what kind of skills you have, and then we can brainstorm. Okay, like how do we come up with a project that can make good use of everyone's skill, and just go from there.
Yeah. No, that's great. And I was actually just gonna call that out. It doesn't matter if the current piece of work isn't sitting in your particular skill set. Just come on. If you have a skill set that you want to use and help and work with other people in building and growing and icon related or anything, that is a talent you're after, isn't it, Brian? Like you
Yeah.
want doers. Now one other comment as well. You made mention active community members. So sometimes people are great at giving a bit of direction or spurring off ideas and may feel that they don't have a skill set per se, but that is a skill set. If you're active in the community, helping answer questions, putting things together, that's a skill in itself. And you're welcome to the DAO. So I think the one thing to remember is the part of that talent is all that talent working together with a goal to generate. Well, I'm assuming this is my assumption here, but indirectly the goal is to create revenue streams, add value that everyone then in that DAO benefits from it. So the merch store is a great example. Throw a merch store together. I know recently I had someone reach out to say, did we want a helping hand with building an Iron Icon website? And I actually want to do this. But in my back of my mind, Brian, with I know the stuff you're working on, I actually told them, do you mind waiting? I'd rather have you come in through the DAO and we can see your skill set and do something and work it via the DAO. That way, it can be rewarded with however we set up the reward structure, which I'm keen to quiz you on here if it's been fleshed out a little bit. Because
Yeah.
at the moment, you've given essentially you want talent people to work there and actually do things. So with these revenue streams, obviously they would go through to the DAO treasury. They'll start building up, and somehow that would be voted on to be distributed, claimed. What's your vision there? What do you envision when we've got revenue streams coming into the treasury?
Yeah, I think in the initial stages, I'm sort of against, making a token. I feel like when people make DAOs, the first thing that they assume has to exist is a token. So we sort of saw that with Bankless, right? And I'm certainly not. Uh, I don't keep track of everything that they do, but I'm on their forum sometimes just to see kind of how it's going. Um, and when they've been a successful podcast for a while, and then the story there is they launched this bank token and airdropped it to a bunch of people, and the idea there was I presume to get people interested maybe and to help promote the podcast and build it into something more than a podcast. Uh, Bankless is actually, I think, a very good brand name
Mm.
uh, for for one of like the main core pillars of crypto. People always say, "Oh, let's bank the unbanked." So
Yeah.
um, I think the goal is to grow Bankless into like something more than a podcast, maybe like a movement or a narrative. I don't know what the end goal is, but if you look at their forum, almost all of the topics are just talking about the airdrop. So, it's I think they have a Discord as well. I'm not sure
Oh,
about that, but
I think so Brian, I'll put in there, I may have to change that perception. No, I am when Ryan, Sean, Adams started Bankless, I was one of the first subscribers. It started from a newsletter, then became a podcast, paying customers, and essentially they gave a drop, to pay the paying subscribers, and they minted a whole lot to distribute. However, they do have a Discord, and it is so big, Brian, and there are so many people actually contributing. Because remember, one of the things, while they dropped a token, they dropped a worthless token. They said this
yeah,
is not worth a dime. It will never be worth anything. It's not meant to be. You're not going to get. But what started to happen is they've utilized Discord and they've created guilds, essentially, like a educational guild, all kinds of different guilds, a dev guild, and they've actually been holding classes on building stuff for Ethereum, etc. The media guild has been recruiting a whole lot of people who make content so that they can, and essentially they've started a merch store. They're
yeah,
working with different NFT platforms for various drops, etc. All on the basis of they've got people who got this worthless token with that vision in mind, how to go bankless, not rely on your traditional systems. Go, okay, well, can we come together and do it? And it is chaos, though. Don't get me wrong. There are too many people, and it's so
yeah,
chaotic. But out of the madness, stuff is happening. And yeah, I found it was an experiment, and in its own way, it is kind of coming to fruition from a token that was just rewarded to people. But a lot of people, as you say, there's a large portion of it have just looked at it and gone, "Where's my tokens?"
yeah,
Not how can I add value to this. Yeah.
yeah. So like, I think I should do more research before I talk then. But
Oh, look,
I I did not. Yeah, I didn't join the Discord, but I do routinely like go on the what is it,
yeah,
forum.bankless.community or something like that,
yeah.
and it's just like
That's probably the least amount of activity of the bankless stuff that happens. Everything happens.
yeah,
So what's cool? What they did was to be part of the bankless DAO, you have to have 55,000 tokens in your wallet. So it registers your wallet and then lets you in the DAO and unlocks. And
yeah,
depending on how much you have stacked, you get into various things. But ultimately, if you have a skill set, you can lend to one of the guilds. You go into that guild and start showing what you can do, and they've got Notion pages, project pages, all kinds of madness happening in there now. And by madness, I mean good stuff.
yeah,
But yeah, it is cool, and but honestly, it is a full time. So there are people now that are manning that are just full time in there. That's what they're doing. So in Rhizome, we're all kind of stretched quite thin. So initially, I like the approach of, okay, if you've got a talent, come into the DAO and see what we can do working together to um, enable it. Hopefully, if we've got aspiring community managers, jump in the Rhizome DAO. Like, what a perfect way to
yeah.
kick
Well,
off.
yeah, I think main differentiator is that Bankless um, was coming from something. You know, they had
Yes.
a vision, they had a podcast, they had a narrative that they were pushing, and I'm not confident that um, Rhizome has that because historically, like Rhizome has been just a P rep. You know, a P rep is a team of people that runs a node on the network. They might do some stuff on the side.
Yeah.
There's not really like a narrative or a story for people to buy into. So I think the next step before you can actually tokenize uh, an entity like that, you actually have to describe or actually come to a conclusion about uh, okay, what are you trying to tokenize, right? So I think in terms of the Bankless brand, they're obviously like trying to tokenize um, the brand itself, you know, and if we as a Rhizome just be like, oh, we're gonna make these tokens and
Yeah.
we're just gonna give it to people who join the DAO, it's like, okay, but so what? You know, so what do these tokens actually represent? So until we're actually able to come to a conclusion about what that would be, uh, I think it would be more efficient and kind of more valuable, and uh, it would also increase the potential future value of a Rhizome token if it were to launch, right? Because if we just launched a token right now, uh, honestly, I can say it would be worth nothing. You know, I
It would.
couldn't even make something out of the top of my head, like what it could possibly be worth. And I know a lot of people in crypto are great at making up stuff. You know, they pull it out of their butt or something. But I really just couldn't do that. You know, so I think by starting off this kind of thing in an off-chain way, you know, so instead of having a token that we can launch and be like, oh, if you join, you get 1,000 tokens or whatever. It's like, okay, we're gonna set, you know, what 100% means in the context of the DAO. 100% of the shares is just going to be um, the the total votes of all of the members who have actually gone through the process of putting in their address and promoting themselves to become a DAO member, you know. So if we can say that as 100% for now, we can have different off-chain ways to calculate each person's stake, you know. So that's what we're doing for the time being, because again, this allows you to maintain kind of uh, the distribution aspects of a DAO, just not in a fully decentralized way at the moment. And if it does move into a world where it's like, hey, we finally know what we're doing, you know, maybe a few months down the line, we have a core group of 15 or 20 people that other projects within the community can rely on to do certain things. Like imagine if we find out we have a group of people that's really good at this task, and I don't know what that task is. Maybe like marketing to people in Chinatown in London or something. I have no idea. You know, like like really good at this task, really good at this task, uh, and then we can actually start to tokenize that, right? Because we actually know what it is, you know, uh, and then it might come to a place where like, yeah, we work on our own projects, but if some other projects in the space, you know, maybe we end up getting really good at making promotional YouTube clips or something, you know, then other projects within the space can essentially like submit projects to us, you know, and it's all about building your reputation as well, you know, because in Icon we do have an on-chain way to fund stuff called the CPS, which for some reason people don't really use. And but that's also about building the reputation as well, right? And the idea there is like if you are a random nobody, or not a nobody, like you're someone in the community who occasionally has like a good idea, but no one really knows you, right? And uh, and you want to get your idea funded. Uh, that might be a bit more difficult to sway, certain teams who participate in the voting because they just don't know you. Sometimes there's this thing, your first intention or your first thought might be this person's just trying to make a quick buck or something like that. So if if we're able to put in these proposals, on behalf of these people who have the ideas, um, through the DAO, if we maintain a good track record uh, of actually getting stuff done, I think something like that uh, is also pretty great to have. Um, Reputation is certainly very important. So I I think the medium term end goal is just to get people together and just find out what we can be good at, as a group. Now I've been talking to um I think he's like an economist, he was talking to me and he was interested in joining, there's like an economist, there's a data scientist, um there's there's a few other people that have like specific skills. So it'll be interesting, like once we work on this a bit more, flesh out the concept, finally start to have some discussions in there. It's like, okay, now we have a data scientist, we have an economist, we have a few people who can code, we have people who can make podcasts. It's like, how do we bundle that all together and market ourselves as like something that um, something that other people can rely on to get stuff done, and also what can we do internally to um, make make an income.
I think just to call out, if people listening, beauty of it is if you have a talent and a skill set, or just know you can add value, when you're in the DAO, it will turn into an idea of a way of generating. You don't it's not something we're going to dictate or have the answers to, and I think that's what everyone should really be coming to terms with what Brian's saying is he's envisioning, but his vision is based on the skill sets he's envisioning. You may have a different set of skill sets and get paired up with a bunch of people going, holy crap, I can, with this talent, actually we can veer off and generate and do this piece of work, and I know this person in this ecosystem, and they're quiet, and this is exactly what they're looking for. We can add value. Yes, we can. It's I think, Brian, one thing we need to make sure everyone understands is it can veer us into many different directions. Overall, it'll be good for the DAO and good for Icon, whatever it is. So that's I always come back to that. And Brian, you may hate me for this, but I always come back to what revenue, what are the ways of generating revenue for the DAO? Because in my head, it's just like the way you envisioned it. I want the doers in the DAO. So, and if they're doers, ultimately what they'll care about is filling up that treasury in a myriad of ways, so that ultimately, however we or someone gets a claim to that treasury, or however that gets dispersed based on what projects are getting completed, etc., rewarded, the better that is buffed up, the more the builders, the doers, and when I say builders, I purposely intentionally say doers because you don't need to be a dev. That's probably one of the big things in CPS failing. Everyone thinks they have to be builders to go in there. But as a DAO, we can attract all of that and kind of veer off in many different directions at the same time, with the right set of people guiding us rather than, yeah, doing it ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's yeah, I think that's a great point. I just have two things that I want to expand on that. So, like if we're going to be talking about, okay, how does the DAO make money? That's like a loaded question. There's many different ways I think that um a DAO like this could function, certainly basic stuff um like the merch store that we were talking about, but that's kind of more in theory we can make money, right? So uh I guess I can talk about the way that we've already made some money, the Rhizome DAO, uh I don't know what to call it. The treasury, I guess, is not zero at the moment. We actually have I think like 5,000 balance tokens and a few thousand ICX that's just sitting there, and that was actually from uh liquidating positions on balanced.
And just to call that out, that is something right from day dot. As
Yes.
you envision the DAO, how it can also add value to people, was you dedicating your time and building these bots. And you built them. You spent weeks building them, and even though the DAO's just operating in the background, sorry, Brian, I don't mean to, but I think I know in the background I've always had conversations. It's a sticky topic, this liquidation aspect.
Yeah.
However, one thing that everyone should note is this is standard across all major DeFi protocols. Maker,
Yes.
the biggest juggernauts in the ecosystem, this is what happens. It is part of keeping the peg, how things get worked through. It's part of the balance protocol. If these bots didn't exist, the protocol itself would fail. So it is unfortunate that people get liquidated, etc.
Yeah.
In the
Well,
yeah,
well, I think the platforms could exist if the bots weren't there, but like someone has to be there to do what the bot is doing. It doesn't have to
oh
be a bot,
yes,
but
yeah,
it's like the value of the balanced dollar, BNUSD, uh, would be zero if the liquidations were not in place, right?
yeah,
Because in order to cover the cost, to cover the value of the loan, if the collateral starts to get to a place where um, it might actually be worth less than the supposed value that it's backing, that's when the whole system kind of comes down. So if you, and the other thing that I want to stress is if we liquidate a position that had like 10,000 staked ICX, that doesn't mean we get 10,000 back. That goes back to the reserve fund or the emergency fund, I believe they call it. And then the liquidator actually only keeps 0.67%. So it's less than 1%. I know there's this like thing out there. It's like, oh, they they did this. They must be making like a lot. It's in the grand scheme of things, it's not a lot. It's less than 1%. So um but at the same time, we need to have this in place in order for the platform to function. And yes, it is kind of a sticky topic. That's why we kind of chose to put it into the DAO. Our team could very much have just kept it all for ourselves. But I feel like the community would be more appreciative and more understanding, and it would, I guess, also like show our personal commitment to the community. If we earmarked, this money, the DAO can vote to spend. It's not just, there's 4 people on our team. They split it 4 ways. So
so
that's not how we went. Yeah.
and look to that. This is what I love as well. If you've listened to the entire podcast, maybe some people's minds are like, oh, there's a lot of thought being put in, but also there's a little bit up in the air. And I actually really like that, Brian. Like, overall, the objective is very clear that we want to create a DAO of doers, okay, to put quite simply. We want to also have revenue streams for the DAO so the doers are getting rewarded in some way.
You
And
can't spell DAO without do. Sorry.
exactly, love it. And lastly, we haven't worked out the details on how the treasury you get a claim to it, how, what is their tokens, this, that, all that. And that's great because when we get the doers there, everyone can kind of input and formulate with their unique skill sets. Like you say, you got an economist, you're talking to all these people would be invaluable to actually going, okay, as this treasury that we've slowly been chipping away doing work, the bots, merch store, who knows, iron icon stuff that goes in there, whatever as a team we start building out, because end of the day, we know the more that keeps happening, it's going to be rewarded tenfold via the DAO. But they're driving that, and that's in my head, that's just, fallen into place going, yep, don't for a second think, oh, they're not sure. It's not for us to be sure. It is really for us to get the talent and then come up with that consensus together.
Yeah, like that kind of leads into the last thing that I just want to cover here. So, there's billions of people on this planet, and if we as in the Rhizome team form this DAO, I think the probability is very low that us four out of the billions of people out there would happen to know exactly how to best run this, So like the probability is like really, really, really low. So that's kind of why, we've just sent it off to this address for now. This address is what we're calling our treasury, and it's going to be spent by people who are within the DAO. So the last thing that I wanted to say is just kind of saying the point that you made already. It's like you don't have to be a developer or something to be part of the DAO. If you look at any successful tech company out there, we can kind of, I think the closest traditional, I guess, structure that you, traditional company type, I would say that you can compare Icon to would be a tech company, I guess. Like we're building infrastructure that involves tech. So you look at any tech company out there, Facebook, Google, they all have many different departments. It's just not all it's just not all devs. They have HR people, and I think HR is actually the most important thing that Icon is lacking. There's no like no one knows who does what, right?
Yeah.
Like, so if we can like improve the HR process, and there's many different departments in these companies. You have like the marketing, you have the project management people, and of course you do have the technical people.
Brian, just as you said that the HR, it's such an interesting, just as we're talking about DAO, here's something that can just transpire. We get 2-3 HR specialists who do this in their day job. They come into Rhizome DAO, give us ideas on how to structure the DAO so that it's more efficient. We take that as an example to the foundation going, we have the skill sets to reorganize and create the structure for you. Bam, foundation funds the treasury for the service. Oh, new revenue stream right there. Is that potential or what, Brian? What do you think?
I think everything up until the foundation funding is definitely something that we can do.
What I mean is, when it's a service, right? I don't think the foundation, just any. If you provide it, you get paid for the service. That's
yes. Well, I think that would definitely be valuable because, I mean, just in general, as someone who's been around for a while, there's just no way to know like who's doing what and who wants to do what and who can do what. And I feel like if we had that information, it like this stuff should not be mysterious. Like if I'm trying to
totally.
If I'm trying to find someone who's good at this task, it shouldn't be a thing where I have to like hit up Spleen or something, and then hit up some other team. It's like, hey, do you do this or you don't do this?
Yeah. I see what you
So
mean. Even
yeah,
connecting all the dots in the ecosystem, that itself is an asset the DAO could. Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
So like Icon is a decentralized project, but I think people have to understand that decentralized doesn't have to mean unorganized.
Yes.
And like can be some aspects of centralization within a decentralized project, So if we have the centralization of data that kind of maps, this person is good at this person is good. That's not going against the ethos of
Yeah.
blockchainers.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was just the last thing. Like, you don't have to be a dev if you're good at HR, and it would actually be better if you had these different skills that people traditionally think are worthless in blockchain, right?
Mm.
Uh, so
Yep.
I'm gonna throw that out there. Yeah.
No, beautiful. And look, I'll give an example as well. And I don't give him enough shout outs, but I will. Donnie, who is an iconist, and various other crypto community members, he, in the background, he'd organized one of the first community sessions. I have spoken about this before. When he did that, Iron Icon, made a regular thing. But in the background, I actually spoke to him, reached out to him, and he's an events organizer. That's what he does for a living. And I was like, look, I need someone. I need help here between trying to juggle everything, coordinate all the interviews, and plan ahead, and aggregate all the news. Is this something you would be interested in doing in the background for Iron Icon? And he has been. So for the last month, he has been in the background, gathering all the icon news and a couple of the crypto, ecosystem news. And when I reflect on it, originally the DAO idea is like, well, how can I build a team of people who want to, aid Iron Icon or just Icon in general? And I'm hoping that just like that, his skill set is so I can't explain how much value it brings to me an
Yeah.
iconographer. Just for him, the amount of time he goes doing everything, it makes life and it makes our news more concise and relevant to everyone listening. So, Brian. As soon as I was like, get him in the DAO, and
Right.
and even today I was kicking off conversations. It's like I want to push this stuff more now towards the DAO because it's in the end, Iron Icon will become what I hope. As we converse, is part of the DAO, and it's just one of the other revenue/value streams that it's adding for the Rhizome DAO, and as we keep growing out the ecosystem. So, just a bit of an example of how something cool will turn into something even cooler.
Yeah, I think it's all about, and this is the last thing I'll say because I know we have to get off soon,
Yes.
but it's all about optimizing what people are good at, I think.
Yeah.
Because um for example, if you feel like you're someone who's good at hosting a podcast, it doesn't exactly mean that you're also the best person to like you said, get all that news, compile it in a way that's like formatted correctly, um, and because that's like a completely different skill set. So,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like the same thing with me sometimes, where I'm good at building certain things. When I say build, I mean code. I'm good at certain things, but then there are other things that I could learn. It would take me a long time to learn.
Yeah.
So in that in that kind of thing, it's like it would be much more efficient to have someone who already knows that. So
Mm.
I I think that yeah, I think the next step here is really to just get as many different people who actually care. They have different skills, and then we can start to build projects that leverage each person's skill
And
in an efficient way.
and just on this point as well, so we may get a skill set of few people who think of a cool idea that isn't building, I don't know, it's just something, yeah. However, we need a bit of funding to get started, and say the treasury just doesn't have that kind of funding at the moment. something like this we could assess as a DAO and actually go and put through a CPS proposal with detail,
Yeah.
have a bit of a. There's so many ways it will hopefully have a ripple effect in the Icon ecosystem, that we get away from this idea that P-reps are the only people who go and touch the CPS, because it shouldn't be. It should literally be people who have talent that can add. But we're kind of nurturing that talent in the Rhizome DAO, creating a separate treasury to kind of keep building on that. But at the same time, we can go in asking for funding, because ultimately, if it's aiding Icon or it's building or it's doing something for Icon, that's what it's there to do. Yeah, look, there's so many possibilities. You're right, Brian. I really hope, though, and I'm going to call this out, and thanks everyone for listening. So everyone, I mean, it's kind of late saying it at the end, but I hope everyone listens through the episode so that they can see from the thought process and where it's landed. Because I've learned a lot. I've gotten more excited, and the only thing I think is how much I can't harass you 24 hours in the day, Brian. That is my only pet peeve.
Yeah, well, I think it's good to be harassed sometimes, but I'm glad that we did this, because I feel like especially I think my personality and just like the way that I work and think, I don't really like to put things out there that are like half baked.
Yeah.
So I get the suspicion that like some people thought it was just like a passing fad or something, that we announced this thing and then we didn't really do anything with it. But in reality, it's like, no, it's kind of been the opposite. It's like since we started off and I got the feedback, I got the data and the analysis that I wanted from kind of the beta testing period, that showed it's like, okay, we need to double down on the idea that this should be not exclusive DAO, but like it should be built and prioritized for the people who want to contribute to the project. We don't exactly like need the DAO to be huge, so
No.
and that was kind of the conclusion that I got after I saw like, okay, so many people like hit me up and like, please give me access to the DAO, and then they come in, they don't even go through the process to put in their address. But then 2 or 3 people did. So it's like, let's focus on those people, and like, so that kind of got me like rethinking the whole thing more to like the HR side, kind of like a thinking group, a working group kind of thing, rather than just a gigantic like mess of people. Maybe 0.5% of the people who are in there actually care about being productive. So
I think, Brian, it's probably ideal to just top it off with, what we're saying is you don't have to pitch your resume before you even get an invite to the DAO. No. The minimum requirements that Brian touched on early in the podcast. And then part of it is up to you. So if you do qualify and you join, you need to make the effort in the DAO. Otherwise, it's not going to be a DAO that rewards you. I think that's the underlying. So it's not.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and this is where I made comment, like your skill set could be just driving conversation in like something that's lacking. And I'm guilty. I've realized I need to really scale back every group I'm in so I can focus on the ones that I'm, should be dedicating time to. And, your skill set would be that, driving that conversation, doing a bit of hounding in the background to ensure that things are getting followed up. So really put it in perspective here. We just want doers. I think that really sums it up. We want doers that have that one goal in mind. How can we push and do things and progress and build and create and offer services and indirectly build the DAO's treasury, which, Brian, I think you still haven't gotten enough credit here. So in the background, it's not an idea that fizzled. You were building, and even before technically the treasury, the DAO has launched with, let's say, not even worthless tokens, like that's what Bankless did, dropped a worthless token and slowly it's gaining value. We're not doing that, but you've already generated revenue that's gone into the DAO treasury. What did you say rough figures were that? How much ICX and balanced? Roughly, not don't quote the numbers, just a rough idea.
No, it's like 5,000 balance, and maybe 2,000 ICX.
Okay, so that is that's almost 10 to 11 grand in the treasury right now before we even have any members, before any revenue streams apart from the one core revenue stream that's been created by Brian for the DAO. I think we're off to gangbusters start, like, sorry, but just for a moment, holy crap, that's brilliant. That is already value in the bank.
Yeah.
And don't mean to, steal the bank list, but yeah.
We're
So
not bankless.
no, we're not. So that's awesome. And look, actually, Brian, from tomorrow, I'm deleting all the other Discords except for the 5 that I'm really passionate about, and every day I'm going to be dropping. I'm dropping my hounding skills in there. And get a
No, yeah, I think there's only enough bandwidth that you have to talk with people in one day, so you might as well try to make the most out of that talking time.
Yep, agree. And share knowledge. It can be about everything. So cool. Look, Brian, I think it's become a lengthy session. I must admit, look, everyone might as well know this. I didn't do a sound check, Brian. I didn't do a sound check today. Oh my God. So I'm really hopeful everything's recorded, but it's only ever failed once. So I'm not doubtful that it'll fail again.
Yeah, let's hope so.
A late scare an hour later. But no, thank you, Brian, for coming on. Really appreciate it. I think very insightful. I am very excited to personally help. I'm extremely passionate about this project as well. And yeah, looking forward to what eventuates from it. In fact, I'm really looking forward to when we get those key people starting to talk in there, how we drive that conversation around what the treasury looks like, how we manage, what the rewards are. I'm really keen to do different, be different, do something different with it. So I really love what you're envisioning here and talk through today. So thank you.
Yeah, I'm excited as well. And thanks for having me on.
Cool. Thanks, everyone. Like, share, subscribe. If you know
Join
someone...
the DAO.
What?
Join the DAO.
Join the DAO, yes. Oh, my God. I thought you said coin the DAO. I'm like, that too. In fact, that will have to be on chain. That way the treasury can mint a NFT that part of the project they're working on there. So that would be cool as well. Rhizome DAO as a special edition.
Yes, we need that.
Cool. Okay. Thanks, Brian. We'll chat soon. Take care, everyone.
Yep. Bye.